Hello there, my beautiful internet and you adorable creatures of the beyond. Fargo. A homespun murder story. I've been pondering of doing this review for a long time, but there is so much to it, and I don't want to do it injustice. But I'll try my best to present the beauty of Fargo because Fargo. Well, let's start with what Fargo is. Fargo is basically a place in Minnesota. And most of the events happen in Minnesota in one way or another, or around Minnesota, or somewhere like that. Well, obviously, Minnesota is in United States for those that do not know. So the point is that Fargo goes into the deepest depths of our psyche and asks one question. What happens when you push a simple, maybe a bit timid kind of a person into his extremes or her extremes, and you put them in unconventional circumstances and you let all things topple on top of him or her? And the answer is pure madness. What I like about Fargo the most is that every character is so well grounded. Like every time you look at a character, it's like everybody has their own story, their whole immense character arch, but we only see a time frame of it. And we feel like those characters have lived there for their entire lives, that the characters um, have this heavy background story and they don't tell it through necessarily through visual stuff but through the way the characters act and how you feel that the continuation of these characters will be long past this movie as well. And it's amazing. It's a moment in time where you capture the most insane scenes possible. So this was directed by Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen, which are both brothers. They have amazing cast, super amazing cast. Um, I'll try not to spoil it too much, but basically there is like, in all of the series and the movie, there's always a scheme pondering, but the message is very clear of what the plot is about. It never tries to shift you away. It explains to you just from the start what its purpose is, what it wants to achieve, but it plans to achieve that may wiggle because nothing goes according to a perfect plan. And in the movie, basically it's about a business guy who wants his wife kidnapped by two shady individuals. And the shady individuals, played by Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormer, it's like Stormer was just like, geez, fantastic as hell. And then we have William H Macy, which is to the top of his line, and you can feel the accents, you can feel everything in this movie. It's just crazy good. So it goes bad as we would expect it. They want to do a scheme where he wants his wife kidnapped by these two shady individuals. Then they want to split the ransom money, but then obviously the shady individuals have other plans. Then we have the sheriff, who is fantastic in so many ways. She's clever, but she's not Superman. She's or Superwoman. She's not indestructible. And clearly she has flaws, she has feelings, she also gets afraid. So sometimes it can overwhelm a person when they are put in extreme circumstances. And both most of the cast delivers these intense feelings of being forced to become the animal inside, when in fact we are presented from the initial state that they are quite pacifist, quite calm people. But then when all the insanity unravels around them, they have to become insane in order to survive it. It's in the human nature. So the message of the movie is like, regardless of how calm and good you are in this life, when you are forced to survive, you will become the monster. Now, let's talk about the series. This is from season 5, which I absolutely love. Season 5 touched on the highest note in Fargo ever, ever, with especially in episode 3. I can't believe I saw this. But let's not get ahead of myself. So, amazing cast. These are from all of the series. So, we'll go, let's see where it is. We'll go with season 1. Season 1 continues the story of the movie in a way, but you can watch all seasons independent of each other and you wouldn't need to know anything about the other seasons. There are some Easter eggs here and there from the movie or from the other series in between, but it makes no difference to the viewer. If you jump into season 3 or season 5 directly, you will not need to see either the movie or the previous seasons, which is amazing. They're standalone. Although they do happen in the same area uh, around Minnesota, they also have a little bit of trinkle in between about the history of Minnesota and their crimes and violence. But all the characters don't have are encapsulated in their own season. They don't necessarily have any connection to the previous seasons, or you don't have to see a continuation between the seasons to understand the plots. And the plots themselves are so wildly different that it makes every season original on its own, separate from the movie. Although I have to say that season 1 and season 2 kind of try to stay close to the movie and to its plot in a way, to, well, the basic mechanisms of the initial plot in the movie. But more or less, they have their own arch. And one interesting thing about Fargo is that they always sprinkled a little bit of superstition in there. And in season 5, they gone a bit overboard. So did they do in season 2, but not in a bad sense. Actually, it quite aids the plot. It makes it interesting. It gives it that mystery thing of what's this gonna lead to? How is this gonna be interesting along the ending of the season? And how does it all tied up? Because in all seasons, everything ties up and kind of cuts all the loose ends. And or ties all the loose ends? I don't know. One or the other. And I also love that the movie and the series always starts with like, this is a true story. But as a matter of fact, after watching the interviews and so on, none of them are based on true stories. Although this is intentionally put there for the psychological effect, because it makes you feel like everything is so much more real. It is potential to happen in this world, and maybe it did happen in one circumstance or another. Not in the whole context of the movie or the series, obviously, but they clearly have been inspired by real life uh, events that happened not necessarily in Minnesota, but all around the world, with some very interesting twists and turns. And season 1 delivers a very impactful approach to the season itself. It gives this continuation from where the movie left, but it builds its characters in a slightly different fashion. There's still a killer, there's a psychopath actually. And then again, we have the innocent victim who kind of gets dragged in and becomes himself the monster. Um, Again, not trying to spoil anything, but if you watch the movie, you can kind of understand of what all of the seasons are going towards. There's always going to be violence, there's always going to be killers, and there's always going to be victims, or not so much victims. But it's a very nice plot twist. But we're not only shown as the killer or the psycho in its murderous form, we're also being shown the humane side of the psycho, because the psycho is not something, I don't know, out of this world. He still has feelings, he still has thoughts, he still has doubts, uh, even fears in some moments. And it's crazy because we are not shown this vulnerable side that eventually makes them be sloppy and make some indecisions, or um, create some mistakes that further down the line costs them either their life or their success. Interestingly enough, in Fargo, it's not guaranteed that the killers are gonna die. They always leave these doors out for some of them, but it does tie it at the end quite nicely. The plot is always tidy at the end. Well, maybe season 4 was a bit sloppy in some spots, but we'll get to that. Season 1, we had Martin Freeman, although I sometimes think he's like Morgan Freeman, but I mix the two together. But Martin Freeman with Billy Bob Thornton, oh my god, perfect combination. Then you have season 2, which is a bit continued by season 1. They've been unethical here, but it's just the first few episodes, and then it twists into this new family, these new victims, these new characters that are quite simple, but the further the plot develops, the more insane they become. And they kind of try to act normal throughout the series. They think like, we can do this, we have everything under control, but nothing is under control. You know that meme with the dog that sits at the table and the fire is just burning around him, and he's like, everything's all right. Exactly that meme. This is Fargo. So in this one we have, let's see where he is, Patrick Wilson, fantastic sheriff. Then you have Ewan McGregor and Christine Dunstan. They just played superbly in the series. We'll get to Chris Rock, and I have good things to say about Chris Rock as well. Um, there are other characters in the series, but man, did they play it fantastically. Um, then we go into season 3, which, in my opinion, is a season that was very brutal and very serious. It had, usually Fargo has this kind of dark humor, not a lot of humor, but it does play nicely. You know, it's a tragica commedia. But this one left the comedy a bit on the back end and focused more on the seriousness of the season, and it was very mature, very dark at moments, but damn, it hit the note so well. And don't consider these ratings. They're not necessarily the most efficient way to value the season, but they are more or less there. Most of the series have very good ratings, in my opinion. Ratings, um, and this one is m- more of a traditional kind of mobster plot, where there's different factions, good guys, bad guys, and also, of course, the victims in between. But the victims are not so innocent in here. Everybody has their own sins that they carry on. Very good season, in my opinion. And I love that the directors always try new things. They don't stick to one particular thing. And I think this is the turning point of the series as well, because this is where I feel like they have started to um, develop their cinematography better and their acting. Until season three, it was the acting was superb, but again, it was mostly carried by the main characters. But in season three, every character is more robust. Even the side characters, everybody is so much more solid. And I believe this is their experience learning from all the previous, from initially from the movie, clearly, because they looked at that and they had a lot of background of the character development from there. So most of their source is based on how good the movie was, and the movie was fantastic. And they gradually improved their series. So season one was very solid. Season two was a bit more comedic. Season three turned to be more serious, and I believe it was superb. I don't know. I can't put it in words. It was just this deep psychological journey. Then we have season four, which has obviously Chris Rock, and believe it or not, he plays a very good role as a mobster. He's not the toughest mobster out there. There are better mobsters than him, but he's he's fantastic. He tries. I mean, when you put the guy into a serious role, he really acts it, and he becomes fearful. And I mean, sorry, fearsome or no, fearsome actually. Sorry, yeah, not fearful, fearsome. And very violent, and it inspires this true mobster feeling. And he's in a way his own victim of his own success. Of course, there are other characters and plots happening in the background, and unfortunately, this one didn't rate as good as the other ones, mainly because I think some plots were a bit too hasty, and they kind of went a bit sloppy here and there. It wasn't so satisfactory towards the end. Some characters died a bit too silly. I don't know. It didn't tie up so good. But again, they experimented, and this is what art is all about. You can't hit the maximum rating with every new release. Sometimes you have, well, I don't call this a failure by any means, but sometimes you underperform just because you try to be a bit too specific in some areas, or maybe you try something that's a bit unknown and you do not quite master it. This also takes part into the. It's kind of a prequel in a way in the historical events of Fargo. It happens way before the movie, but it's quite unique. This is a mobster war, and I don't know. There's a lot of elements that could have been improved, but clearly, no matter who had been in charge of this series, it would have been an extreme challenge. So I believe they did the best they could, given the plot they tried to develop. But in the end, it does feel a little bit watered down. Again, fantastic character development, especially between the Italian mafia. Then there were other mafias, such as the Jewish mafia, of all things. And then you have the American mafia, which is, and yeah, a lot of factions. I'm not gonna go too much into it. And then season five, which in my opinion is the season where I don't know. It's barely in episode three, and we already see like the rating is 9, and for good reason. They slapped on a Prodigy soundtrack on it, and it feels just fan freaking tastic. And it's smack my bitch. It's uncensored, it's rough, and it's, oh, I don't know how to describe it. They really, really, really learned a lot from their experience, and now they master their craft because this new character is intensely good. I think this is the pinnacle of their creativity in all of the series. The villain is very clearly the villain. The victim is extremely traumatized to the point where she's paranoid, and she has a family, and she's dragging her family in it, and the family is concerned, and she's like this, I don't know. We are presented with a very strong woman lead. She's a tiger. Think about Ripley, so not Ridley. I was thinking of Ridley Scott because of Alien, but I wanted to say think of the character Ripley from Aliens. She's that kind of a character. She's she has she's a mother at heart, but when she becomes the killer, she's unstoppable, and she will do anything to keep herself safe and her family. She's I believe love is the most gruesome killer in Fargo, but here they achieve the pinnacle of their creation, and I can't wait for the next episodes because, oh, good. The characters and even the mystical part, the supernatural part is so strong in this season. It's fan freaking tastic. Highly recommend this series. You can start directly with season 5 if you wish. And when you finish season episode 3 or whatever episode you're gonna be on, try to go to the movie and watch the next series in between. Just you won't be able to stop. It's just so addictive. It's so well acted. It's ah, I don't know, the cherry on the cake. Okay, sorry for my stumblings and ramblings and so on, but I'm a little bit excited. Okay, guys, you stay awesome. Keep watching Fargo if you're gonna start watching it, and catch you in the next episode. Bye bye.